growth requires more than capital.
Why do we call it the cheat code? Nobody said growth had to be fair.
Revenue solves everything.
Welcome to the cheat code.
What was our fastest path to revenue?
We tend to like to do things the hard way.
What's the cheat code? It's giving yourself an unfair advantage over the others.
What is it that really works, and how are we going to grow these organizations?
That's our cheat code.
Hello and welcome to another edition of the GTM Cheat Code. We're in season 2 with a focus on partnerships. Today, my co-host is Sean Kester. Sean, what's happening?
How we doing? Excited to be back on the pod.
Yeah, we let you back on. We let you out of the closet. That's pretty cool. Anytime Justin prioritizes something else, we let Sean out of the closet. So it's nice to have him. So as we embark here on season 2, we are focusing on partnerships. Today's guest is an inspiring leader. She has been a top performer at enterprise SaaS companies, creator of co-sell software category, passionate about giving back with a focus on charities around autism and youth. She is changing the flow of capital through the Fempire movement, and her day job is the CEO of PartnerTap. Cassandra Gholston, welcome to the show.
Thanks so much for having me, Josh.
Yeah, we're super excited to have you. So let's just jump right into this sucker. Since the theme is partnerships, why don't you share with us your ultimate partnership cheat code?
So I think for startup companies, I'm going to give you a cheat code for startups. I think the main thing is think about partnerships very, very early in your journey, as early as possible. We have a partner of ours who's a really good partner to this day. But way back in 2017, our company actually was founded in 2016. We had mapped out all of the companies that, were selling to the types of customers and the buyers that we wanted to sell to. And so we mapped out the consulting firms, the technology companies that we wanted to get close to. And Partner was one of those companies. So we went to a Dreamforce where they were at and had some discussions with them. And I met some of their salespeople. And right after that conference, started sending them some leads. And then reached out to the CRO. And I actually pulled up the email today to just remember. And my second piece of this is you always have to give a lot before you're going to get anything, especially as a startup. And so I wrote to the CRO and I said, hey, we sent your salespeople a couple of leads. We have more leads we can bring to you. And we're actually in process with a company that you're in process with right now. So would love to meet. Our technologies are non-competitive and very complementary. And that started off an amazing, amazing partnership. I mean, at the last two, fast forward now, or 7 years later, we just went to their conference, and past two conferences of theirs were their top sponsors. And along the journey of PartnerTap, they have referred us some of our best customers. And early on, really gave us, we did a lot of co-marketing, and they really gave us, that bigger brand that, we just didn't have as a startup. So that's if you want to go sell enterprise, go and partner with the enterprise leader that you're complementary to as a technology company.
There is a ridiculous amount of gold in everything you just said. It's going to be hard to unpack it all at once.
It's a lot to unpack.
Yeah, but even we'll just start with the idea of knowing your ICP, right? Like you started with your customer first. And then instead of saying, how do we go get them inbound or go outbound and build this huge sales team, you said, who else sells to them? Like, how did you get to that point even to start off? Because nobody thinks that way.
Well, I built a co-selling category. So let's just start there. Being in software sales, that's what I, did was we partnered and we co-sold. And that was really the genesis for the technology. So it made sense right out of the gates to go, I always got my best leads and best counts from partners. We need partners, right? Because you start a company, you have 0 partners, and that's really hard, right? You need to be you need to be getting leads
Right.
in other areas. So, but you absolutely need to be willing to give a ton. So I think there was probably 2 years where it was just us, giving leads, like everything. I mean, we were hunting down leads for them. We wanted to be the partner that they thought about because they had all these established companies that they were partnered with. Why would they take a bet on a smaller company, right? A new company to market.
I assume it's the AEs that are sending all these referrals over. Did you compensate them for it? How did you incentivize them to do it outside of them normal prospecting, closing business?
In the beginning, when you're founder-led sales, right? No, it's you. So myself
Right.
and one of my co-founders, it was us. We were the ones that were sending. And then, we started getting customers, and then it would be our success people would help us uncover leads for our partners. So yeah. And then now it's our sellers. I mean, that's a huge piece of our go-to-market is this partner ecosystem that we've been cultivating since 2017. And yeah, so it's kind of amazing to think back. I mean, so many years, but we knew that partnerships was such a long game and it is a moat maker. And if you just have to make yourself so like they have to have you. Like they can't live without you. Like you're feeding them.
The give to get point can't be stated enough, right? Like that's how it
Right.
has to start. Because Sean, the number one question
Right.
we get asked from companies in our portfolio, part of the GTM lab, we think we want to do partnerships, but like we don't even know how to get it off the ground. Where do you start? And
Right.
Right.
it's always you got to give, right? Like I think you said
Mhm.
it perfect, and this is my experience as well in partnerships. Is I was the smaller player going after partnering
Right.
with the big
Yep.
enterprise, behemoth. So they wanted from me to differentiate, right? So what would that look like? And it was really hard in our world because in the early days of LeadMD, which is the services agency that we had, the only thing we sold was Marketo services. So all of our customers had the software that we
Right.
were partnered with. I didn't have this like massive book of business that I could go flip over to them and say, hey, you need to talk to Marketo. So as a part of
Right.
our engine and our machine was anytime we got inbound, and those folks didn't have marketing automation, the first thing we did was register that with Marketo
Yep.
so that they knew that we were thinking about them every single time we talked to someone who didn't. And it didn't seem like a lot to us, but it actually was. You'd be shocked at how
Yeah.
few of their other partners even got 1, 2, 3 leads a quarter, right? And we were
Right.
producing at a
Right.
pretty good clip.
Yeah. That's interesting that you say that because, we would get in the beginning and still we do, we would get leads for a PRM solution, which we're not.
Right.
And so,
Right.
yeah, it's just sending those leads and we bet big on one partner. Um, and yeah, it's a lot of trust too that you're building. And there's something to say about exclusivity in the beginning. We dated, I think, a lot, and then
Yeah.
we decided, okay, we're going to go all in. We're going to take this bet. They sell to the enterprise space. That's where we are selling, and so it just fit.
Let's not skip over or gloss over the bet big on one partner, because this is the second time now, we're only 3 episodes into season 2 here, that we've
Mhm.
heard all in on one partner, big, strategic, and that's kind of counterintuitive what a lot of people think. What's the thought process
Well,
behind that?
well, when you're a startup, you don't even have a team that's going to be able to give time and manage, multiple partners, let alone, one. So you've got to be able, and if it is this give to get, you can only give so much because you're only so many people. So you're only getting so many leads to actually give. So that's why you have to start out with a handful, and you're kind of dating and you're seeing who do you really align with. From a goals and values perspective, that was big to us. And then who are they selling to? Who are their customers? Um, and yeah, and then you can start expanding, and then you get people
Yeah.
to start to manage those partnerships. But yeah, in the beginning, if you get too many, then you're not gonna be able to give enough leads. You're not gonna be able to make an impact what you want.
Yeah, we hear a lot of times, as Josh mentioned earlier, these earlier stage companies ask us, how do we get into partnerships? We don't know where to start. And I think it's important just to reemphasize the dating part and making sure that you have alignment within those organizations. Like, who can you work well with? Because if you have to pick one, I think the CEO of the company is probably going to pick the biggest one, right? He's going to say, hey, go after this one. It's going to be strategic. We want that logo. Odds are that's probably not the one that you end up marrying to, because there's a lot of factors that go into play there. And so I think it's really important to start off small with a handful that you could see a potential with, and making sure that you have really strong alignment there, because you do want to put your cards, in one hand, and you want to put your eggs in one basket. But you got to make sure that it's the right one. And so oftentimes people skip over that step and say, hey, look, this is the biggest logo. We should go there first.
Yeah. I think too is having a mutual customer aligned, and
Absolutely.
that. So early on, when I looked up that email, we were in process. We're actually in process with selling ADP, who's still our customer to this day, and they were in process with them, and we knew that. So it was just like
There's something to rally around,
right,
right?
Mhm.
It's a big enough logo that everybody cares about it, right?
right,
And you're
right.
showing that you've already got some chops because you're in there. Okay, so you're
Mhm.
worth taking seriously, type of thing.
Right, right.
So I'm curious. You talked about the early days, and then as it matured,
Mhm.
who did you deal with? Like when you're trying to get your foot in the door with that big partner, you're the
Right,
CEO of a small company. You're at
right,
all accounts, you don't matter at this point, right? So who are
right.
you speaking to at the big enterprise partner you're tackling then to get the ball rolling? And then what does that relationship look like today as it evolved?
So I reached out to the CRO, because I think we had met at the Dreamforce conference,
Nice.
and it seemed like he was active in partnerships too. And I thought that the CRO would care probably about, hey, we're sending leads and we're in a process. You want to talk to us, and you know he actually has moved around a little bit inside the company. He's still there to this day, and yeah, he's somebody that I would text and still have a really good relationship with. So
So as that matured, CRO seems
mhm,
like a great starting point, right? I think to your
mhm,
point, like if you're giving something, they're probably going to listen. Um,
right.
how did that materialize into actual deal sharing, deal flow, things like that? Is there field activation? Did it stay at the executive level? What does that look like today?
So for a long time, it was just at that level. And then the first thing that we started doing together was just co-marketing.
Okay,
So this
interesting.
is something that you can start out, you can start marketing together. Um, because they were the larger company, they just, they were doing a lot more,
Right.
and they would bring us in. Um, and then in turn, it turned into more of a co-sell where we would meet the sellers that we would refer leads to. And now we're data sharing, we're doing a lot more. We're talking to their sellers a lot. I mean, the sales team is talking to their sellers quite a bit, and um, we're doing events together. We're really ingrained now.
Like we're reading each other's playbooks.
Right.
It's the same stuff we're preaching, right, Sean?
Right. Right.
That's absolutely right. Cassandra, you said something really clever earlier that I want to touch on, in that when you gave that example of that partner at the beginning of this, you mentioned that once you had sent over a few leads, you reached out to the CEO to tell them. And I think that's really smart, because if you hadn't done that, there's unlikely that they would have ever known who you were, or they would have, and that kind of waterfalls down, right? So the CEO saying, hey, who's this person reaching out to me saying that they gave us leads? Is this something that's a potential there, right? Then you're on the radar. And so I think, as anecdotally, like, that's a very clever thing to do. And I think a lot of people underestimate the power of doing so.
Yeah. I mean, hey, if somebody reached out to me and said that they sent leads, I would take the call.
That's right. Absolutely.
So, Cassandra, you might not know this, but Sean used to run tech partnerships at SalesLoft prior. So I'm curious, with PartnerTap and even this main partner, was there a technology integration component to that, or was it really just a co-sell type of arrangement?
So, I mean, at first, no. And I would say, out of the gates, before you go and build anything, is this partner a good fit? And then also understanding, what does your shared customer need from your technologies together? And sometimes in the early days, you can't really answer that, right? So you need people using your product, and then you start going, okay, what would you like if this was together? Here's some ideas. What do you think about this? So that's kind of how it grew. Was for me, I mean, even building PartnerTap, it's always been just really centering around the customer, and it's obsessing about what's going to make their lives better. How are they going to produce more revenue with your platform? And if that answer at that time was, for you to integrate with this company, that's not going to help me right now, then that wasn't a focus. But we were very, very good complementary. We didn't have to integrate out of the gates. And so I think that when we finally did build the integration, it was really thoughtful in how we built it and what it does.
Very cool. What things did you do to build that customer feedback loop that you could share with the partner? Because the obsession on the customer, I love it, right? So you've got to be able to share that feedback. So what kind of things did you do to make that a part of your plan?
We would talk to the customers together. We would talk to them separately. We'd come back. My product person and their product person were getting on the phone together, so it was a lot. It was a lot of different calls. And there was a person inside of the company that was such a great partner manager, who, he was doing a lot of talking to our mutual customers as well. So I think sometimes you've got really good partner managers that are super proactive, and, we were feeding them deals. And so he was paying attention to us, and, going above and beyond, and, figuring that integration out, which I think a lot of partner managers do that. But yeah, he was great. They have a great one now too. But in the early days, I mean, that's what we needed. And he was awesome.
Love it. So have you expanded into other partnerships beyond this one key at this point? Yes. So then what was that inflection point where you thought we were mature enough to take on another one and another one and another one, right?
Yeah. So I think the interesting thing was they were really the genesis, because they had their own ecosystem of partners and consulting firms. So we started doing co-marketing with them, where their consulting firms started to take notice in who we were. So we actually created a lot of partnerships from the partnerships that they had, and understanding who their best partners were. And so that's how we really got in deeper with consulting firms. So I think consulting firms are awesome partners. Technology firms are great, but consulting firms, typically with a consulting firm, this is a person inside that company has a deep relationship with a C-suite executive, and they can walk you in and they can get deals done. Where a lot of times with a technology partnership, I can refer you, but the type of relationship that we have isn't as tight as that consultant that is in there day in and day out, and tackling your high level strategy, and that trusted advisor that they become.
Yeah, I'm obviously really biased on that because that's the world I came from and that's what we did.
Yeah, and that's why everybody loved you over at Marketo, right?
Yeah,
and all the partners that you had.
But I do find that, we obviously are preaching that as we talk to companies, our portfolio, like how do you look outside of what you might think of as a traditional integration partner or technology partner into more consulting?
Right.
That seems to be gaining some good traction. But I do find myself fascinated often with the world that Sean was in and how you looked at and measured technology and integration partners, because it is different a little bit, right? Like there's not just this, sure, there's referrals and things like that, but Sean, what were some of the things that you saw were those big inflection points on the tech partner side?
Yeah, it was hard at first because it takes work to be able to measure those things. So there was always this: do we put engineering effort into pulling this back end data, or do we anecdotally say, hey, customers that have integrations do better, right? And so I think for many years we anecdotally said, like if they had 3 integrations, that they were 50% more likely to renew or something. So we just made up a number, right? But it caught on, and everyone would say it at the executive level, and I loved it. So we stuck with that for a while, but then we started measuring it actually, and we did find there was a direct correlation between integrations outside of like core integrations like Gmail and telephony and CRM, anything that was like more custom to their workflow, whether it was like video or chat or things of that nature. There was much higher retention. I forget the number now. I think it was 60% higher net retention number across those customers. And so that's what we ended up measuring. And then also big time on the competitive wins aspect. So if we were integrated into other things that they were using, we had a much higher win rate than if they weren't, or direct versus our competitor. So for a very long time, we had at least 2x the integrations in all the adjacent categories than our closest competitor. And so that was a big piece. And so I personally went into Salesforce and added fields for that to be part of the deal cycle, because we had to prove ROI, right? You're going to put engineering effort, time, and marketing and resources into it. So those are the 2 big ones that we measured.
Yeah, I mean, I think integrations are super important, because there does come a time when you've got this competitive landscape and then companies start to look the same, and what's the differentiator? And that becomes a big differentiator. I mean, we've seen that with Salesforce, who's another company that we've partnered pretty tightly with, but that's a long haul partnership.
I was going to say, you've successfully partnered with Salesforce. You're one of one, maybe.
Yes. Yeah.
I think TFL is the only one I've ever seen do it well.
TFL did it well. Yeah. Marnie and that team did a really good job.
Yeah. I mean, we do have employee number 51 from Salesforce on our team, so that is helpful.
Yeah,
that does not hurt at all.
Right.
Yeah, a little bit of politicking going on. I like that play.
You've kind of alluded to this idea of creating a culture of partnerships within organizations, especially early and often. Mm-hmm. How do you recommend that happens? Because I think the biggest hurdle oftentimes is it not coming from the top down.
Right.
And it's near impossible for that to happen. So I guess maybe in the context of an early stage founder, how do they create and if someone who may be a leader in an early stage company that isn't the founder, that doesn't have that, how do they start to organically build that within the business?
I think if you look at who in startup is this is like pretty much you have a male dominated, you've got their backgrounds typically in engineering, right? That's going to be your typical founder. And so I always think of how hard it would be to run a company when you don't have just sales in your DNA, how much you've learned about go-to-market motions and plays and partnerships being a super important one. So I think, to a founder that is more technical, and I have a technical co-founder, and we're very, very different, very different. And I think he would probably look and go, well, the numbers don't work out, right? Like, I should anticipate that I'm going to get revenue. Why would I put in time if I'm not going to get something in return immediately? So, and I think for partnerships, it's it's something that you have to work so hard at, and you don't see the fruits of all of your labor until 7 years, right? Where you're tracing back all the steps and all the things that you did, that might not have actually even gotten you to this point. So there is this risk. So I think if your background is different, it didn't come from the business side, it was technical. These are analytical minds,
Right.
where it's black and white, right? There's no gray here.
Yeah. Well, you
Um,
obviously intuitively understand the long game, but that's
mhm,
something that you're going to have to almost explicitly spell out, right?
right,
Now you have that experience to draw on, but for someone else, they're going to have to draw on your experience and say, look, these are the things, these are the steps you have to take, and here's what it yields in the long term. It's not a turn it on and it's just going to start happening.
right.
Right.
So I think especially now, when you look at a competitive landscape, like at a certain point, there's, this competitive landscape where it's like, how are we differentiating? And so if you put in the work early to make that moat, because that's what partnerships really are, it is a moat maker,
Right.
platform moat maker, right? But
It's not
yeah,
easy. It takes
no,
work.
and
No.
right. So explaining to somebody that is like, I don't understand why we would do that. Why don't we just, get the salesperson that's going to go make the calls, and that's what they're going to, because that's what I can then calculate, right?
Yeah.
Put this effort in, I get this, and that's what I'm going to scale. And then later, it seems like people come on where your board is starting to tell you, hey, there's a thing, it's partnerships, you should do it. And I think that's the normal playbook.
Yeah.
But PartnerTap runs a completely different playbook than
I love it
most
though.
companies,
It's the best.
because you've got a different type of CEO.
It is one of those plays, right? Where if you're a startup and if you can tap into, no pun intended, that bigger partner ecosystem, you can play bigger than you are, right? And it gives you a
Absolutely.
chance to play in the
Mhm.
bigger leagues faster. So
Mhm.
shifting gears just a little bit with our last segment here, learned a lot about you and partnership and PartnerTap and partnering, but want to know a little bit more about you, and more specifically, every time I see you on LinkedIn, you have a neon sign behind you that says Fempire. What is the
Every
Fempire?
time?
Every
Come
time.
on.
Every time. No exceptions.
Without fail.
No
I
exceptions.
don't think it's every time. Well, so where do you want me to start?
I want to know, what is it?
Oh, Fempire. Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
How did it start?
you know,
Who's involved?
yeah, Fempire is something that, we would say behind the scenes of PartnerTap all the time since we started building the company. We're like, behind the scenes, we're building the female empire. The exact opposite of what, companies look like today, most companies. People don't know this, but, or when I say these stats, people are like shocked. But there's only been ever 22 companies thus far that have a woman CEO founder that has taken a company public.
Really? 22?
22. Mhm. Yeah. There's only been 40 that have had a woman on the founding team, not CEO, but on the founding team, that have gone public. So we have a big problem here. You've got 58% of the workforce right now is women, and 35% of the workforce that are women actually hold leadership positions. And we've got more women graduating with a bachelor's degree, with a master's degree, with a PhD than men. We have a problem here. Like, this is so imbalanced. And so, we decided to have a dinner one night and at a conference. And I said, we should just call it the Fempire dinner. And well, 8 women will show up. And what happened was we ended up having to buy out the restaurant. And, it started to get noise. And so now when we go to conferences or when we go places, we're running these dinners, and we're bringing in women leaders, women business owners, women that are running partnerships and revenue. And we're just laying out the facts that these are the stats, and if we're going to change things, then we need to be doing business together. That's how you truly change the flow of capital. We're not going to do it at the funding level, which this is why I love you guys, Josh, because one of the first companies you funded was by a woman CEO. So I just think you're awesome. But this is a problem. And so we need a network. We need a network in our industries. So it's become, something that people are talking about, and really it's just about, driving revenue together. And that's what PartnerTap is about. We're, a co-selling platform. We are the enterprise co-selling platform. And, companies are coming to us right now because sales is broken. These companies that are investing in new go-to-market strategies like partner first, channel first, co-sell first. Those are the companies that are going through this go-to-market transformation, and they're looking to us to, lead them down that new path. And it's all about co-sell and be together. And so, the Fempire network, it's about the same thing. It's about coming together and doing business with each other. Some of the most awesome stories I heard last year were people, signing big partnerships because of having dinner together. Some of the biggest deals of, people that were in these rooms came because they sat next to just decision makers. And so knowing the facts is what's, I think creating change. In a lot of the enterprise companies where, men are purchasing our solutions, because we love men too. They love Fempire. I know you're laughing about it, Josh, but they love it.
I'm not laughing about it. I love it too. I wouldn't have asked if I didn't care about it. I love it.
They're telling me, I have daughters, and it's super important that things change, right? So I don't know. I had a father that was like, you can be whatever you want to be. But unfortunately, he didn't know the real truth about what what women and minorities go through.
Yeah, no, agreed. And it's an amazing platform, and there's nothing more powerful than like-minded people getting together and helping each other do business and grow. And the business leaders that you speak to, I have 2 daughters and want nothing more than every opportunity that they could possibly have when they, move on and are off my payroll. So that would be fantastic. I told my oldest daughter that, there's a platform here that you can build off of. There's a good chance you don't give 2 rips about B2B vertical SaaS, but the investing platform will be there. You can find a niche that you care about and go after it that way. So
I love it.
Yeah, absolutely. So where can folks connect with you? How can they find you and PartnerTap?
Well, you can find me on LinkedIn with a neon sign, I guess.
Every time. It's on the banner, isn't it? Right? It's just behind your head.
No, no,
okay.
it is not. You're probably thinking about other people. I mean, people put that as their profile.
Well, I know. I see you in Autumn a lot, so there,
Yeah.
it's not just you,
Yeah.
but
Yeah. So I'm really active on LinkedIn. And you can find my company, PartnerTap.com.
awesome. Well, Cassandra, thank you for joining the show.
Thanks for having me.
You are very welcome.
Thank you.
And to our audience, thank you for listening. Please find Cassandra, find PartnerTap. If you learned something today, or maybe you laughed at a story, or want to join the Fempire, please go and sign up for the podcast. Give us a like, give us a review, all of those good things. Again, Cassandra, thanks again. This has been another episode of the GTM Cheat Code.
Growth requires more than capital.
Why do we call it the cheat code? Nobody said growth had to be fair.
Revenue solves everything.
Welcome to the cheat code. What was our fastest path to revenue?
We tend to like to do things the hard way.
What's the cheat code? It's giving yourself an unfair advantage over the others.
What is it that really works, and how are we going to grow these organizations?
That's our cheat code.